We at MD Coaches know that match is a stressful time. If your match results were not what you expected, you might need the time and the space to explore what's next. MD Coaches is proud to offer a comprehensive 6-week virtual group coaching program that explores your unique value and possibilities beyond the match. We're offering 4 separate rolling cohorts, Sundays, April 7 through May 12, or May 19 through June 23rd. A second option is Thursdays, May 2nd through June 6th, or June 13th through July 25th. All sessions begin at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can register today at mdcoaches.store/medical-student-coaching.
I still remember clearly the first patient that we used a biologic in on a study for, I even remember his name and could picture him, for his rheumatoid arthritis, and the dramatic improvement that we saw within a week. It was like magic, and it wasn't really magic, it was science.
Paging Dr. Cook. Paging Dr. Cook. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR.
Welcome to the Prescription for Success podcast with your host, Dr. Randy Cook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prescription for Success. I'm Dr. Randy Cook, your host for the podcast, which is a production of MD Coaches, providing leadership and executive coaching for physicians by physicians to overcome burnout, transition your career, develop as a leader, or whatever your goal might be. Visit MD Coaches on the web at mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone. And don't forget that CME credit is available when you listen with us. Just look for CMFI in the show notes to learn how. My guest today is a prominent thought leader in the field of rheumatology and immunology, as well as the founder of DJL Clinical Research in Charlotte, North Carolina. So let's hear my conversation with Dr. Jane Box. What a pleasure today to be talking with Dr. Jane Box, who is coming to us from Charlotte, North Carolina. Jane, it's so nice to have you on the show, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Thanks.
Thank you, Randy, for having me on.
Well, let's get right down to the conversation. We like to really explore your career arc from the beginning to the present. So let's talk about your early life. I know you got some of your early education in Kentucky, but where did you do your growing up?
Moved around a lot. I've lived in South Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, and ended up when I was 10 in Florida and stayed there until I went to college.
I see. And what brought you to Asbury College for your undergraduate studies?
My father was a Methodist minister, and that was the place that we could economically go to college and get a very good education. I knew by then I wanted to do pre-med, and they had a very good pre-med reputation.
That's a good strategy, and I'm a big fan of those smaller parochially supported schools. I went to one of those myself up in Birmingham, and it did. Asbury is a liberal arts college, but they had a very good and still have a very good science department. Yeah, and I understand that as of today, it's actually Asbury University, is it not?
I think so. Yes.
Did some growing, yeah. And so you knew you were headed for medical school. What put that idea in your head?
I don't even remember. I cannot remember not wanting to do something in medicine. I had an aunt who was a nurse and worked in the Red Cross during the polio epidemic and became the executive at Grady Hospital. And she was very encouraging that I should attempt medical school rather than nursing. This was a long time ago.
Yeah, and that's kind of unusual advice to get back in those years. Do you have any idea why she had the wisdom to see that you could make a success of it?
She always said that she thought I was too curious, that I would want to know the why of everything, and that I would enjoy the medical background, the physician background, more than the nursing.
So you were better
maybe she
suited.
thought I didn't like the bedside nursing. Who knows?
Yeah. Sounds like she thought you were better suited as a curious investigator as opposed to someone who just does what they're told. Is that?
Yes.
Does that sort of sum it up for you?
Yes. That does. She certainly was, and so were her sisters, my mother and my other aunt, and that's kind of why I wanted to go to medical school, which was not as easy as one might expect in 1966.
It was a bit of a challenge for women in those days, was it not?
It was.
Yeah. Can you sort of enlarge on that a little bit? Were you aware of the obstacle that you were up against because of your gender?
Yes, I was very aware of that, and basically concentrated in college pretty much on GPA and the classes I took and my personal experience. Actually had more fun in medical school than I did in college. I figured once I got into medical school and there were 3 women and 73 men, I figured they were going to keep me there.
Well, that's a good thing. I'm glad to hear you say that, and that is my experience as well. But of course, as a male, I think it was a little easier on us. During those years in the late 70s, to my amazement, I actually witnessed some sort of disrespect and near harassment of the female medical students. Did that come your way at all? Did you experience that?
I really will say nice things about Bowman Gray, which is what's called then Wake Forest. Once I was in medical school, I felt quite secure. There were certainly, I'm sure, episodes, as there are in every part of your life, where people were unapproving of what you had done, but I did not recall being really harassed or discriminated against. I worked hard, but everybody worked hard.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good thing. And I suspect that you were probably far less likely to be subject to that kind of unpleasant talk because you were a good student.
I don't know. It's not totally absent, but it was not obnoxious either.
Yeah.
It was, and I think at that point in time, and certainly medical school at any point in time, if you work hard and you associate with people that work hard and have that as their goal, then
so true.
There's not as much time for other issues.
Yeah, you hang around with people you'd like to be like, and that
yes,
that makes a big difference.
Are you a doctor struggling to provide the best care for your patients while dealing with financial and caregiving matters out of the scope of your practice? Do you find yourself scrambling to keep up with the latest resources and wish there was an easier way? Then this virtual caregiver conference resource will save you time, money, and sanity by giving you all the resources and information your patients need in one place. This conference helps you and your patients enlist the best strategies around healthcare resources and the best financial steps for your patients while navigating caregiving situations. You don't have to go home feeling frustrated and helpless because you couldn't connect your patients with the best services. Find out more at jeanniedoherty.com or click in the link in the show's notes. You don't want to miss this caregiver resource.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Crow, founder and CEO for MD Coaches. Here on RX for Success, we interview a lot of great medical professionals on how they grew their careers, how they overcame challenges, and how they handle day-to-day work. I really hope you're getting a lot of great information. But if you're looking for an answer to a specific problem, management or administration challenge, or if you're feeling just a bit burnt out, like maybe you chose the wrong career, well, then there's a faster way to get the help you need. No, it's not counseling, it's coaching. RX for Success is produced by MD Coaches, a team of physicians who have been where you are. I know you're used to going it alone, but you don't have to. Get the support you need today. Visit us at mymdcoaches.com to schedule your complimentary consultation. Again, that's mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment. But right now, I want to tell you a little bit about Physician Outlook. If you haven't discovered this remarkable magazine, please do so very soon. It was created by physicians, for physicians, to showcase the intersection between clinical and non-clinical interests, whether it's writing, painting, cooking, politics, and dozens of other topics. Physician Outlook gives a physician perspective. It's available online and in print. It's really unique among physician lifestyle magazines. And like the Prescription for Success podcast, Physician Outlook amplifies the voice of any physician who has something to say. It also engages patients who still believe in physician-led, team-based care. And Prescription for Success listeners can get 3 months free when you enter our promo code RX for Success and select the monthly option at checkout. That's a really great deal on this stunning publication. And now let's get back to today's interview. And what about your postgraduate training? You stayed at Bowman Gray for that, right?
Yes, I did. I stayed for internal medicine and then rheumatology fellowship.
And when you started your internal medicine training, did you feel like you were probably headed for a subspecialty, or did that take some time to evolve?
No, I was headed for a subspecialty, but I was not sure of which subspecialty. I was very fortunate in that when I began what was then an internship, I was allowed by the medical school to do my first rotation in Kenya at a hospital there.
Wow.
And
I bet that was cool.
That was very cool, and came back, and had I had that experience before, I might have gone toward the surgical specialty, but I'd already made up my mind and been accepted into internal medicine. And I was relatively sure after about a year, and at that point you rotated a month at each of the subspecialties, that I wanted to do a subspecialty, but I still wasn't quite sure as which one.
Well, that leads me to the big question every time I talk to a rheumatologist, and that is, I hope I'm not going to get on my bad side when I say what I'm going to say, but I'm always interested to know what draws people into a specialty where they're treating things that are never cured.
Particularly then, in the course of my career, we've been very, very fortunate to have developed a total different armamentarium of treatments for the immunologic diseases. But at that time, there was not a lot. I did like and still like and have always liked the continuity of actually getting to know my patient and their family and their circumstances and trying to make some sort of difference in their life, even if I couldn't fix it.
Mm-hmm. And it really was a different world in the late 70s, was it not? I don't recall that there was a really intense understanding of the influence of the autoimmune system with respect to those diseases.
No, we were just beginning to somewhat discriminate between diseases, initially based on symptomatology and outcome, but over the first 15 years of my career, the knowledge of the actual immunologic deficiencies and abnormalities just ballooned.
Yeah, it is really
what we know.
If you look at medical specialties that have made the most progress, I would certainly nominate rheumatology and immunology as having grown the most. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes. It's been very exciting. I mean, when I was a fellow, last year, a fellowship, one of my duties was in the clinical research division, and Bowman Gray, Wake Forest at that time had an inpatient research division. And one of the drugs that we were testing to treat rheumatoid arthritis was ibuprofen.
That's way back.
Well, it's not back as far as you think. It was from then until the 1990s. We were just stuck with iterations of that type of medication.
Right.
It was really in the 90s before the immunology became robust enough, and the ability to develop medications that were specific blockers of various parts of the immune system became technically possible. So a huge change in treatment, understanding of disease, and amazing forward progress, which has been very exciting.
I was just about to say it. It must have been exciting
Yes.
to you to follow that arc from having such a limited understanding of the inflammatory response and where it came from, and now look at where we are today.
Yes. Still not there, but definitely really far along the pathway compared to the past.
Yeah. So you got your training done, and did you, at that point, is that where you translocated to Charlotte, where you are now?
Yes, I got married, met my husband in residency, and he is also a rheumatologist. And we looked around. It was interesting. We looked around for a job, and there were very few places at that point that wanted to hire two rheumatologists. So
Really?
we started they didn't know if they'd have enough work for two.
Oh, I see.
Which is very interesting. We started our own practice in Charlotte.
Well, the reason that I was a little bit surprised is during the course of my career, the arc of my career, every time I went looking for a rheumatologist, they were so busy it was really difficult to get somebody in. And
yes, it didn't take long. It didn't take long. I would say, yeah. It was kind of misjudgment on some of the clinics who then later reached out and said, "You sure you don't want to come?" "No, we don't want to come now."
Well, and again, that's sort of understandable given the state of the art at that time. But then, if I've got my assessment of your CV correct, you actually were associated with 3 different arthritis clinics over the next 20 years.
Yes.
Well, more than 20 years, right?
Yes. Initially, we had our own practice. We, in the 90s, had a short period of time where we worked with a local hospital. And then in the early 2000s, we joined some other rheumatologists and orthopedic surgeons. And then toward the end of our career, because we wanted to turn our focus primarily to clinical research, which is what we had done our entire time in addition to our practice, we left that group to do our clinical research.
You had significant interest and professional activity in research from the beginning. Am I hearing that correctly?
From the very beginning. Yes, a couple of years after we finished fellowship in our own practice, we began with clinical research and have done it continuously. And that's been very exciting because by doing that, you're on the cutting edge of understanding what's going on in your field. You don't just learn about the medications, but you learn about the immunology and the thought processes behind why that particular medication is attempting to be developed.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting. It keeps you, instead of just seeing patients, which is lovely, and I enjoyed immensely, and still have patients call me every day practically from the past. I've really enjoyed, and so has my husband, the increasing ability to keep up with the immunology, which has become quite complex.
I bet that really has been exciting to literally see the science develop and in such a short period of time. Not that we didn't see that in surgery, but I don't think the changes in surgery have been nearly as far-reaching as
Not
they
until
have
you
been.
get to robotics, so that's pretty fascinating. My daughter's a surgeon. That's pretty fascinating.
It is, but still, it's just a matter of kind of doing the same operation, yet with a considerably less invasive approach.
Right.
Whereas in rheumatology, the entire understanding of the biochemistry and physiology behind not only the understanding of the disease, but the development of medications has just been absolutely immense. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Oh, it's been amazing. And I still remember clearly the first patient that we used a biologic in on a study for, I even remember his name and could picture him for his rheumatoid arthritis, and the dramatic improvement that we saw within a week. It was like magic, and it wasn't really magic. It was science, but it was really quite exciting to take a gentleman who was actually an EMS provider, worked very hard, had quite severe rheumatoid, lots of swollen joints, and start him on his injections one week, see him the next week, and have dramatic improvement.
The gratitude must have been beyond words to see someone come so far.
It was very exciting, very exciting.
Yeah. Particularly, I mean, you'd been in it for a long time at that point.
Yes.
and undoubtedly had scores of patients who had become completely
Right.
disabled.
Yeah, I do have to stop, Randy, to remind you I was barely out of childhood when I went to medical school, just in case you were wondering.
Okay, I understand. I'm kind of in that group as well.
That's right.
So to move the process forward and to get into this exciting area that you are in now, you've moved into DJL Clinical Research, an
Yes.
investigative site network that's been going on for a good while now, since 2010. So
Yes.
tell me about where that idea came from and how you came to feel like you were willing to roll the dice on that.
Well, as we were in private practice in the early 2000s, the major drugs in rheumatology came under serious investigation in the late 1990s, early 2000s. And by that time, we had joined a group with a couple of other rheumatologists, and all of us were doing clinical research. And it was very exciting to be able to offer the patient, particularly at that point in time, something totally different. There was no way they could get otherwise that would make a big impact on their life. So, because we had done this for a long time, my husband and I decided that and at that point, to back up a little bit, because of these drugs, it's becoming much more complicated. So, we had a large enough group of studies that we could afford to have people that specialized in different parts of the research pipeline, not just the physician, but those that did the contracts and made sure the paperwork was done and did the quality assessment and identified the correct patient and gave them information. So we felt like at that point that was an opportunity to allow physicians, particularly physicians who are running their own business and were often somewhat isolated from the education and understanding of a big community, to be able to do research in their office and have that opportunity for their patients and the opportunity for themselves to keep up with their specialty. So we do not just rheumatology, but many other specialties as well. And that has grown, initially just rheumatology, but now encompasses 12 different specialties. First of all, we provide the personal physician knowledge. How do you do this in your practice? How do you learn what you need to learn? How do you integrate it into the 1,000 other things that physicians are supposed to do in their free time? And we also have the staff that can do many of the tasks in a very efficient way for them. So that's how it started, and that's kind of how it's grown.
When you say it's grown, it's really grown. You want to talk to us about how the volume has increased and what you're
Yeah, so
involved
we've
in?
added a variety of specialists, particularly specialists who are also in the pipeline for immunologic developments. A couple of things. Oncology, obviously, has been at the leader of developing immunologically targeted medications for various types of tumors, genetically targeted. So we work with a group of oncologists. Dermatology has learned a lot from the rheumatologist.
Yeah, they really have.
They really have. And yet dermatologists are not always comfortable using these drugs, much more so than they were 15 years ago. Some of these are infusion drugs, or often self-injectable drugs. They require special monitoring. Patients have to be screened for tuberculosis, and they need appropriate lab work. And so we have a number of dermatologists that we assist in making sure they can offer their patients these particular medications. And more recently, of course, allergy has become very involved. And more recently, gastroenterology with the ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, inflammatory bowel disease. They're now borrowing a lot of our meds as well. So we have done that. And then we have others. We have ophthalmology, which again is beginning to have immunologic medications become available. Gynecology, cardiology. So a whole variety of specialties, each one with their own little niche of medications that are under development.
That's really interesting. I definitely would not have guessed that there was a lot of activity with respect to the inflammatory response in the world of ophthalmology. But obviously I
Yes.
was wrong about that.
Quite a bit. That we just started a study that will involve Sjogren's syndrome, which involves a great deal of difficulty with your eyes, as well as other types of things. So we have tried to take our knowledge and our experience and our ability to have well-trained staff, which we have had. Most of our senior management have been with us for many years, and we have tried to use that to expand the opportunity for patients and for physicians far away from the medical center, where they could be in their own community and still have access to some of the treatments. They don't have to travel, they don't have to leave home, they don't have to change doctors, and they still have access to these treatments. And that's been fun. And that's why we're still working, because it's fun.
Tell me a little bit more about the nuts and bolts. How do you connect with other physicians and other practices that are interested in becoming a part of this process? And I guess maybe we start with how do you get the message out there that it's even available to other people?
We have done that pretty much up until this point on a personal basis. There are other people in this field, often owned by corporate entities, but we have tried to be very personally involved. For example, we are looking to add a certain specialty, and we have contacted a variety of physicians in that specialty in our relatively close geographic area. We do North South Carolina at this point, one in Georgia. So we try to personally reach out. We try to say, look, we've done this in our practice. We can manage this for you. Your office manager, who is probably threatening to quit on a daily basis because she or he is overwhelmed. It doesn't add anything to her table. It doesn't add much to your table. We can help you negotiate this. It seems overwhelming sometimes to the physician. The most common response is, I just can't add anything else now. So we try on a personal basis to say, look, let you talk to other people that have done this, talk to us. You have questions, we can try to do this in a positive way. We've had reach out a couple just in the last couple of weeks from Illinois. So we're trying to expand, but we want to expand only if we can continue to keep it somewhat personal.
So help me understand, is it more common for you to recruit the other practitioners that would like to become involved, or is it the other way around? They come looking for you?
I think it's probably 50-50. We certainly recruit other practitioners that want to be involved. Actually, what we do, recruit's probably not the word, we try to offer them an opportunity and show them that it is something they can do in their practice, but does not add another 4 hours of homework, which is what's really killing physicians at this point in time. And then we also have physicians that reach out to us and say, I've heard you do this, or my friend, for example, I had one from South Carolina last week. My friend does this, and he says he really enjoys it. Tell me about your process. So, and we have not done a lot of advertising. We could, and there are people that do that. But as I say, we've tried to maintain, we're physicians, you're a physician. We know what's going on in your world. My daughter is a physician, much younger, of course, and I learn a lot from her. We know that the world of medicine right now is very challenging. Let us show you something you can do. It may decrease your burnout because you're having more fun. It certainly is an opportunity to your patients. It's an economic stream that may help you keep your head above water. All of those things come into play.
And do you recruit kind of on a cold call basis, or do you speak at meetings and just let everybody know that you're out there and let them come to you? How does that work?
We do that some. That is, the most successful method that we have had is a very personal one. This is who I am. I know you, or your friend, or Joe Blow up in your part of the world also does this. Talk to him. And if you're interested, let us tell. And then from that point, I turn it over, of course, to my managers, my people that can talk about all the nuts and bolts of how to do that.
I bet there is just an uncountable number of grateful patients that this is going on.
Yes, the satisfaction of having the patient be able to access treatment for a disease, particularly when they are pretty much stalemated with what they're able to do, is really quite rewarding. It's rewarding for the patient. It is, of course, no cost to the patient, which can be very helpful in certain situations, but it's also very rewarding to the physician because, we all went into this because we wanted to help people.
So, do you have a sense of how widespread this sort of approach has become? Are you just a little speck out there, or is it?
We're relatively
I'm sure it's becoming
small.
more common.
Yes and no. It is becoming somewhat common in the world of private equity, where they would like to purchase. And I have a lot of thoughts on that. But in our world, where we are trying to do this on a personal, we're not a big player, but we're not small either. And we have potential, I think, to be big. Again, we've been cautious about growth to try to keep it with our standards and not just say, oh, here, you can do some research, or we drop you some stuff off. We'd like to keep it as high quality as possible. And in clinical research, because of the complexity of the drugs, the complexity of the FDA requirements, complexity of the law, like everything in medicine, is becoming more complex. And it's very challenging to do it all by yourself.
I bet it is. You piqued my curiosity a bit with that private equity remark. Are you a fan or not?
I feel personally that the physician-patient relationship is very important. Having followed patients for sometimes 25 or 30 years, I feel that it is in their best interest if they have a connection with their physician. And it is also in their best interest if the physician has some control over who works for them, what kind of tone is set in the office, what kind of tone is set in the hospital. I feel like that there isn't a lot of profit in medicine, or there shouldn't be, but unfortunately, some of that may have been drawn off by those who are not really had the patient's best interest at heart. And that's probably as far as I need to talk about private equity. We could do a whole nother podcast on medicine.
You bet. Yeah, and that's about as good an answer as I think I have ever heard. I think you really nailed it. It is the truth is there is quite a bit of profit in medicine, and the potential for that kind of exploitation is the sort of thing that pains people like you and me.
Right.
But it's just out there, and we have
to
deal with it.
And all I could do in my little corner of the world is to try to provide a service that I think helps patients stay with their physician that understands them and can think not just about the patient, but all the associated things going on in their life and their community and how that impacts what they can and cannot do and what their expectations are for their life and their health.
Well, it looks to me from the outside looking in like you're doing it very, very well. And it's really encouraging to me to find that people are doing what you're doing, finding new and innovative ways to connect patients with what they need. And you're doing it without making profiteering your highest priority. And I think that's that really is a noble approach.
If you run a business, you have to make money. I mean, that's the way it is. I have to pay my salaries. But, it is important to remember that we're dealing with people and that's their lives and what they want to do, or they want to have the ability to live the best life they can with what's available.
Very well said. Well, I think that brings us to a good point, Jane, for me to back out of here, and let's give you a chance to do what we invited you here for, and that is to speak to us on your own. So, audience, I'm going to close my mic for just a few minutes, and Dr. Jane Box is going to share her personal prescriptions for success.
Well, thank you, Randy. My personal prescriptions for success are actually very simple. I have always felt that it's very important that we as individuals set goals, but that our goals are perhaps somewhat realistic and put in a time frame. For this year, for this next 2 years, this is what I would like to achieve. I'd like to achieve this in my work, but I'd also like to achieve this in my personal life and in my family. It's good to have a goal. I want to get to X, Y, or Z in 15 years or 10 years or 20 years, but I've always felt it was more important to try to see this is the goal that I wish to achieve in the next few months. And then the second part of that is I feel like you need a plan. So often I counsel young people that want to go into medicine or want to do something medical, for example. And they know what they want to do, but they don't have any roadmap to get there. And I try to say, you need a roadmap. This is what I need to do to achieve where I need to go. For example, I may need to take these 3 exams. I need to do them in a certain time period. I'll need a certain amount of time in order to take those. And the same is true in running your own business or in the work environment. Here's where I want to be. Here's the roadmap to get there. At the same time, I don't want to get off on any sidetracks, but I also want to stay true to my goals and my intentions. And that's all I can say. Those are my prescriptions for success, and they've worked for me for a very long time.
I like that. That is about as concise as I've ever heard it, and I can't think of more wisdom than that. Set realistic goals, make a realistic plan, and then execute. Very well said.
Thank you.
Dr. Jane Box, it has really been a pleasure talking to me today. I'm really fascinated. You're the first physician that I've ever had a chance to have a realistic conversation with about private equity, and I'm very impressed with how you have done something that really is clearly having a good impact on the lives of patients, in addition to providing a reliable income source for the physician. It's a really good thing.
Well, thank you, Randy. And they're good. They're good and bad things to everything in life, and I think we have to try to search out the positives in what we're doing, but we have to be realistic about the negatives. What do we give up in order to achieve certain goals?
Very well said. Before we go, I want to give you an opportunity to share anything else about yourself that you would like to with our audience, particularly how to get in touch with you, websites, email addresses, places where you're going to be speaking or whatever. Please share with us now.
Thank you. So our email, our website is djlresearch.com, and I will share the fact that it is named for my children. There's no particular acronym there. And you can email us at jane.box@djlresearch.com. You can go to the website, which has a portal both for patients who might be interested in the North, South Carolina, Illinois, Georgia area studies we have available. Also has a portal for physicians that would just like to talk more about it. There's no obligation. We're happy to share with you. We're also happy to share our experience in other areas of practice as well.
Dr. Jane Box, thank you so much for being with us on Prescriptions for Success.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us reach more listeners by leaving a rating and a review, especially on Spotify or Apple Podcast. And if your app doesn't have that option, just leave us an email or a voicemail through SpeakPipe at www.mymdcoaches.com/podcast. You can also help by becoming a Patreon member. That link is in the show notes. And we hope you'll also follow our companion podcast, Life-Changing Moments with Dr. Dale Waxman. Special thanks to our producer, Craig Clausen, our promotions manager, Mariana Rodabaugh, and to Ryan Jones, who created and performs our theme music. And remember, be sure to fill your prescription for success with my next episode.